I make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as stated. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
By Mrs. Fishman. He's already speaking to it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. We have no blue cards filled out tonight, so we will dispense with the community open forum, move right into our special presentations. And I will turn it over to Mr. Colabufo to introduce our first presentation.
So we have Michael Vespi. He is here from Forecast 5, and he's going to be showing us what 5 Lab can do. We've had a lot of discussions about data. This is going to be a great way to be able to have dashboards of a click of a button, and we'd be able to pull up all of this important data when we're making all of these decisions. Mike Vespi.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, there we go. Thanks, Tom, I appreciate it. I want to start with just a quick overview of Forecast 5, the services that you have, kind of our background. I'll do a couple minutes and I'll jump right into the live tool. I know that was one of the questions. I'm actually going to review your data tonight for what we've built out so far. So in terms of what we do, we work directly with school districts on data analytics. So when you use Forecast 5 in terms of a service, you get an advisor and a relationship manager. So I was a school administrator in Central New York for the past 16 years and a teacher for 4 years. So I don't hand this off to somebody else, and that's why I'm here tonight. Tom had asked me to come up and do this presentation. So we do have, obviously, we want to get your staff trained. Maureen's been using 5Site for probably 4 years now. And so we do train the administrators, but we're also here in support. So here are the products we have, and you currently have 5Site up here in the right-hand corner, and I'm going to go through that. 5Cast and 5Cast Plus is actually budget forecasting software, and that's my primary responsibility in New York. And 5 Lab is what we've built out, and that's a relatively new product that we brought here, and really in an effort, we're in 26 states around the country, really in an effort to package this data so that you can see what really what's going on in your district, but how does it apply to the ESSA standards in terms of college and career readiness. And so that's ultimately what you're going to see the goal is, to really package data and to be able to use it to make those decisions as outlined by these new guidelines. So again, 5Site. 5Site, I just wanted to briefly mention, it's a collection of data that's publicly available already. So what that allows us to do is make comparisons to any school district in the state. So all of the financial data that's available, all of the enrollment data, salary data for certified physicians, all that data is publicly available. We take it, we repackage it. In fact, tonight I'm going to start and show some expenditure per pupil information that's available that might answer some of the questions that you have. But there's a lot of data that's out there, and again, it's when you're in when you're working on a project and you're trying to make comparisons to see how you compare. 5Site's really good for that purpose. Even in making budgetary decisions about what you may, underspend or overspend in certain categories.
If I
Yeah.
Does anything that you currently offer, will it make, I guess it would probably be Maureen, her life easier with the by building expenditure requirements that New York State has now?
Yeah, so right in the top left-hand corner, the 5Cast and 5Cast Plus suite, because the expenditure reporting by building for ESSA is going to be based on actual expenses, we tied it to a monthly forecast module. So essentially, every month that you upload the data, you can kind of see between a combination of actual expenses and the trend, you can kind of see what your final report's going to look like. There's a good reason for that, because if you can kind of see in the future what the previous trend looks like, then you can make course adjustments if you notice a discrepancy. And that's really what, kind of moving out there a little bit, but that's really what the political conversation has been in Albany, right? We've heard that We're going to be careful on what we do with future allocations of school aid, because there's some districts that can't figure out how to allocate funds, amongst their districts, their district buildings right now. More so the districts that are most in need. So we have built a report that we attach to that monthly forecasting module that will show actual expenses. Of course, the transparency report that's due August 30th, if it continues, that's tied to budget. So really, after your budget gets approved in May, you should be able to fill that out. I'm sure you've heard that both of these reports, without support, take a long time and took a lot of people offline, 76 school districts offline over the summer. So yeah, this would be the solution right here, FiveCast Plus. Just in terms of, kind of what I do and how districts are using Forecast 5 services, obviously the budget benchmarking and negotiations, the, board member orientation. So there's a state of the district report that's generated. We have an enrollment projection spreadsheet that's generated. A lot of these tools really are used administratively. And then, I know on occasion that there'll be presentations like this that'll be reviewed in front of the board. But really, when you've got a new board member, you can give a nice overview of your district based on, you'll see tonight on 5Lab, you can really give a nice overview of your district using this data. Probably the biggest thing that I do is forecast planning. So capital project, debt service schedules. If we make a decision now on your budget, how does it impact 2-3 years from now? Depending on what you're going to do with your tax cap, right, and what you're going to go out at, how does the decision you make on your tax cap amount this year impact 4 or 5 years down the road? So that's a lot of what I do. And of course, the whole student achievement aspect, which I'm going to actually show to you. So this isn't just about we train you, as I mentioned. We also have key deliverables. So you can see, one of those is a long-range financial plan, and the state of the district analysis, and then the transparency and S reporting. Currently you don't subscribe to all those services. You have 5Site and you have 5Lab. So we're going to jump right into 5Labs. I want to talk a little bit about this. This is our newest piece of software. Just to give you a background, right? So the idea is to take information. We have publicly available state data for 5Site. 5Lab is your data. It comes right from your student information system, right? And it's the biggest struggle is to bridge the gap between our software and your student information system, right? So we've had a little bit of a slow start in terms of that, and I think we're on track now. And it's to be expected. You're one of the first districts to really do a project. I think we've had 3 or 4 others that have started. So we're really in new territory. So that's why you're going to see my continued presence in the district to make sure that this goes smooth. But the idea is to take that data in a CSV format and then to build, as Tom mentioned, easy to read dashboards. So as a school administrator myself, I always found that the district administration is so busy doing their day-to-day job that it's very difficult to really make these connections, unless somebody, I joke and I shouldn't, but, most of what you'll find is, this is what your administrators are doing on nights and weekends, with an Excel spreadsheet, with paper copies of something and trying to assemble this data. So our goal is to really automate it so that you can have a daily snapshot and, create these dashboards at a level that would be appropriate for the superintendent, an assistant superintendent, and then down to the building level. So it's live data. I've got to be a little bit careful tonight, right, because the data is generated by students. So I'm going to keep everything at a kind of a higher level tonight. But I'll show where you can kind of get the idea. And essentially, as you probably read through this helps you with the challenges of organizing this data and getting, kind of developing those insights. And, the end game here, right, is to figure out what you want to look at and then figure out what you want to measure, and then that's going to help with your strategic planning process. So again, it's when you circle back to the measurement, that's when you know that you've got the continuous improvement. So that's really what the goal. So I sent you examples. I'm going to stop right here in terms of the PowerPoint presentation because we're going to go live right into your data. So this is all online, and so here's what it looks like. So you can log right in from a Chrome, so the administrators have a login to do this. And actually, the learning curve is not too bad in terms of ease of use. But we have, what you're looking at is what's called a guided analysis. This is just a district overview. So you can see just an enrollment breakdown by school right here. So when we say that it's a guided analysis, you can actually click on this chart, and you can continue to click on it until you get down to the student level. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of scroll down here. So total enrollment by elementary school, high school, middle school, so you see the breakdown there. And then you can see the enrollment by grade level. So pretty consistent. And then, of course, we can break it down by ethnicity and race. And then we get into gender, which is pretty even. And then, you know, there's a whole separate guided analysis for discipline. And then, of course, with ESSA, chronic absenteeism, discipline issues, and then a grade distribution. We're going to kind of focus on those 4 areas tonight. You can even get student count by homeroom, which this is pretty raw right now. We've really got to refine this data. And you know, the nice thing about the software, as I'm saying, you can see that you kind of see the lines. Each of these is a little dashlet. So this is all customizable. So, you know, Tom says to me, you know, this chart doesn't make sense, then we can actually pull it out, edit it, and put another chart in that does on the district overview page. Make sense? So we're just going to go ahead and drill into attendance quick here. So this is absences by school year, so you can kind of see where your absences are year to date. It's interesting when you look at somebody else's data, you kind of make some quick conclusions, but the whole idea is for the administration to review the data and make some conclusions. Like first, you know, what you'll see here is Thursday seems to be a popular day to be absent from school. And you can see also very quick right here, you can see that the highest number of absences would be at the senior level, which, you know, probably in terms of a stereotype would make some sense, right? But you can actually drill in and say, well, what's going on there? But these are absences by building, and then obviously breaks it down again by race, ethnicity, by month. And you can see January had the highest number of absences. And actually, there's something happened January 10th. Because, you know, and again, I've only looked at the data, you know, really to prep for the meeting, but you can actually drill in and see which kids were out and for what reason on that day. So it might be an anomaly, or there might have been something that happened. So
It's probably the day after the playoffs, Patriots won. My only guess.
So you can see Thursday, it happens to be the most popular day of the week. So again, you know, I know the person that would try, the administrator that put this data together would literally be in, you know, in their home office for the weekend, probably 2 weekends, to try to put this together all manually. This, if you think about it, comes out of your student information system, uploads, syncs, and you've got the data at your fingertips, right? So now you can make you can kind of make some of the inclusions. And then, you know, you've got the type of absence that you have. So let's just drill in. I'll pick on the middle school real quick. You know, attendance rate by grade level. You can see that January, you had the high absences in January, so quick trend. And then you can see the absences broken down by male, female. So again, why would we want to know this? Right? So as an administrator, you say, well, how is it something that we're doing? Is it a sickness? You know, what's the trend here? And you're trying to make those conclusions to see if, from a programmatic standpoint, you know, maybe on Thursday needs to be no quiz day or something. You know, I don't know what the answer is, but you assemble your team and say, let's take a look at this, and does this make sense? Right? And then, of course, you've got the absences. So you can see right here on the 10th, there was the highest spike. So that's either bad data or something happened. I noticed on Valentine's Day there was high absences too. So it's not just about a certain event.
Hey, Mike, you certainly don't have to go into it here, but just from a level of effort. So this is kind of the pre-done. If an administrator wanted to, say, compare
absences this December to last December, is it a high or low level of effort for them to, customize
We
it?
have to load, we just have to load last year's run. So what we're committed to right now is getting this year's data in, getting the dashboards that the administration wants to use, and then we can go back if it makes sense, but then the idea is to go forward.
But going forward, it'll be easier, correct? Next December, you'll have it versus this December.
Much
correct?
easier.
Yeah, that's good.
Much easier, but also, once we have the template, the big deal is to get the template in order. I mean, we're talking, a lot of data just to get to this point. Once we have that template in the download file, then it's simple because it's just another year. So it's really a lot on the front end, which is what's, kind of delaying us a little bit in terms of the project. So I just clicked into discipline, and I'm always, careful to not get in the weeds here again in this forum, but, you quickly get an idea of where we are discipline events by school, total discipline events, discipline incidents by month. So this might, spark a conversation about a character ed program. This might spark individual building discussions. I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of the administrative discussion. But again, the effort to get here is really now just an upload file that's built. Now we update it on a monthly basis, and you can have those conversations in your meetings. You can see that the incidents, the day of week is again on a Thursday. It seems to be the highest incident. You can break it down by race, ethnicity, right? And then here's all of the categories. So you can see insubordination is a big one, disruptive behavior, and then cutting class. And then you can see the actions that are associated with those. And you can see, as you'd expect, warnings really is right up there with detention. And then, of course, you've got your out-of-school suspension. So one of the metrics that is really important to schools are your out-of-school suspensions and then repeat customers, right, in terms of that. So what you can do, I'm not going to do it now, but you can click on the 128 and you can drill into that data and you can get the percentage and then the percentage of folks that are there for, multiple times, because that skews the data.
So I did go into that level of the weeds, and in doing that, you can see it's such a small percentage of the students that make up the 128
That's correct.
out-of-school suspensions. I mean, I can name the kids.
Yeah, and overall, when we look at the number of incidents, it's a relatively small number as well. So,
Yeah, because to me, this is where it's important, because, so let's say, we have a high incidence of discipline, right, on Thursdays. But it really is a small group of kids, so do you hire somebody else? But the data would indicate that no, because it's just a handful of students. It may be a problem, and it might be a lot, but really it's just a few, it might be just a few kids. So to me, that's where this is, this is gold, because it can really indicate truly what your problem is, instead of your gut saying, geez, I'm up to my neck on all this work, and I got all these kids are in trouble. But really, it might be, and then you can focus on, well, what are we going to do to the dozen kids, right? So, what would we have to do in order to mitigate that, to lower it, and then the data would prove out to whether it worked or it didn't work, right?
yeah,
The
very,
obvious answer is we eliminate Thursdays.
Yeah, I was going to say all Thursdays off, so. But it's interesting, though,
It
right?
is.
If it's Thursdays, it's a bad day.
it is, and what's interesting about it is you have the conversation, and I used to hear, maybe you have a newer administrative team as an example, and you say, yeah, this new administrative team, the rates of out-of-school suspensions have sky, well, now let's look at the data, and then, and you can look at any of these categories. You can look at it by gender, by race, now you've got data because you're tracking it, you're required to track it, it's in your student information system, and now when you're having those conversations, it's a factual conversation based on data, as opposed to what someone thinks, when you're at the football game Friday night and they've got an opinion about it. So, I think this is where this really helps you make those decisions, and again, helps set where you're going with your strategic plan. This helps you set it, and you can create the data points to measure it.
You speak my language.
So, Here we even have the discipline events by date histogram again, and remember, we just drilled in, if you look at the filter that's in place, now we're drilled into the middle school. So you can drill into each of your middle schools. And, so that, this may be at a higher level, right at this level, and then, of course, you've set the parameters so that the, each level of administration can drill in even deeper and really, figure out what's going on here. So the whole idea with all of this, right, is we're going to get to some kind of student achievement discussion. And this is preliminary, this is just middle school and high school, but what does your grade distribution look like? Now again, this isn't publicly available data, right? So this is your data from your student information system. So now we can say, how are we doing with A's? So I did a presentation with a New Jersey superintendent that really questioned the rigor of certain classes and looked at the distribution of A's, B's, C's, et cetera. So, and it was a data discussion. So you can have that conversation now. You're going to take a look at by gender, what are the grades, by grade level.
So is it possible, sorry to interrupt you, but is it possible, because you just sparked something in my mind. So something that, we would be able to quickly look at, let's say, I don't even want to name a subject area because I don't want to cause speculation, but let's say...
I'm in a subject area now, so don't worry, I'll
let you do it. But
I can do it for you so you don't get yourself in trouble.
Thank you. What I was going to say is comparing like what they put on the report card to then what the student actually achieved on the Regents exam.
Eventually, we'll be able to cross-reference that data, and that's exactly the type of rigor that was referenced in the presentation. And it was a New Jersey Administrators Conference, and that's exactly the insight that the superintendent had made, is that's exactly what he looked at.
So if the class average was a 95,
Right.
and then the class average on the Regents for that class was a 75.
Right. Where are we missing it? And then, so that does two things, right? That's at a high level, at a grade distribution level, then that would allow your administrative team to then delve in with the teaching staff to really get into the specifics of what was taught in the curriculum throughout the year. But that's the first high-level indicator that would spark the conversation.
And in fairness to the teacher, I was teaching for 10 years, sometimes you don't have that data put in front of you, So it's an eye-opener for yourself to look at that and go, wow, okay. I see that.
Tom, when I was teaching it was the first 8th grade test, so we were just getting the data, and you kind of had to figure it out manually. So yeah. So you get that, you have those conversations. But so now you can look at, we're in the middle school right now. We can look at pass-fail rate, right? So we could click on any of these A's by department, and then again you can drill right down to what the pass-fail rate is by department. So if we click back. I was actually looking at the high school, failing 2 or more classes, right? You can track that, because that's a big piece for us in terms of ready, not ready. So we could click on, I think I was picking on math. So you drill into math, and then you can see here the classes. So what classes, so the fundamental algebra looks like, 23%, right? So right now, you're actually looking at maybe a class that, where there's some struggling going on right there. So, very quickly right now, so what are some of the strategies? How do we react to this, And then again, that you can click on that and then drill into the students. So you have an early indicator already of who are those students, and then you could probably tie them to discipline to see if there's any correlation between those students, their achievement, and discipline. Is this starting to make sense?
Oh, absolutely, and then absenteeism, and then, somebody was from mayor, nobody likes giving quizzes on Fridays, so they always give them on Thursday.
Well, my big thing is, everybody knows that the integrated algebra, when I was an assistant principal at the high school, is kind of the unspoken thing. It's the rule of thumb, but it's always, I'm going to say it's 100% accurate. How a student scores on their integrated algebra test is the clearest indication if they're going to graduate with their cohort.
Right.
And then are they reading on grade level 3rd grade? But that integrated algebra has been spot on.
And then, we've got because that was a big piece of suspension, not suspension. So, you're going to take these multiple data points, you're going to create a dashboard, you're ultimately going to make a plan with it. That's the whole point that's here, right? So I know that, you know, I'm creeping up about 25 minutes, and we had allotted probably no more than about a half hour. So I want to get to a couple of other things
Oh, you can take as much time as you want.
that are that are phase 2 projects. So in the first 30 days, we received data in early March. In the first 30 days, this is the initial build out, and the next 60 days, we're going to have national assessments, state assessments, local assessments. We talked a lot about reading scores, so that's a big piece that we want to be able to get in a format that we can create a dashboard. We're going to have those college and career readiness, the high school readiness and grade level readiness, so we'll have to talk about what those look like. And then the biggest piece that's here in phase 1 that we don't have because we're trying to get the data coordinated is the participation in activity. So I'm going to sneak right out of grade distribution before we get into any more trouble.
And Mike, before you go on, just
Yeah,
question, I
sure.
don't know if it's for you or Maureen or Tom, but for part of our population that participates in city, is that data here, or does city use the same capability that we can have access to through that way? How do we get access to that?
So I think, and it's got to, I think we can pull it out of here because we do put their programming into School Tool. It's how do we identify it and pull it out separate from the rest of it. So same with P-TECH, same with, full day CTE, things like that. So how are we coding them in School Tool, and then how can we extract it for this?
This next piece, I just want to show an example. We're going to build out, the data source obviously comes from your financial system, HR system, and that is teacher attendance. And so there's a whole module that we put together. Actually, the first state that we did this for was New Jersey. I've got the data in demo mode, so there's no live names, and some of this won't work. But you know, the idea is to just look at staff attendance. And while I'm in here too, I can show you some of the other categories real quickly. But
If it's Thursdays, we're just going.
so, yeah. Well, I had the privilege of presenting with the superintendent, and it was really interesting to hear it. So, obviously, specific days of absence, and then absence by position, absence by type. And again, this isn't top secret information. The district's required to record this now. So, you know, this is information you can take a look at, and you can see that in this particular district that the highest day was Friday, not Thursday. And then you can see it by month, and then, you know, by different buildings. So, you know, so this is more data, analytical data that you can look at and work with your team and, you know, try to, I think, in some ways lessen the impact. But you can see these categories, 3rd grade on track, 6th grade on track, we'll eventually get there. Now, this project has been a year in the build-out, and that's why they're, you know, to this stage. Attendance, discipline, freshman on track, SAT, PSAT grade distribution. So you kind of see the guided analysis that they have. We'll get there. You know, it's just going to take some time in terms of the build-out. All right, and then I'm just going to show you one other one, just so you have a sample of it. And I thought this was probably, and this is where I want to get to with your district in terms of this. And we're going to work together to get here. We have a little work on your data side of it, but and we knew that in our kickoff meeting that it was going to be a struggle because there's different data sources where people have student activities. We got to get that data source in the student information system. So we'll get there. It's not that anyone did anything wrong. It's just trying to get it, you know, in terms of this, you know, getting ready for ESSA. So we'll get there. I think this is a big indicator of success in terms of, you know, where are people, you know, in terms of their participation. So, you know, I think that, you know, once we lock in to this model, I think you're going to be pleased because you'll see a direct correlation with student achievement. So again, this is in demo mode. You know, what you see right away is the number of students who actively participate in two plus activities. or fewer than 2, but they're still participating, 61% rate. And then we tie that to chronic absenteeism. So is there a correlation with students that are participating with absenteeism? And obviously what you find is that there's less of a problem when students are engaged in participating, right?
Mike, this is the data that we want to be able to meet, our
Correct.
administrators were saying, right before high school. Be able to say to parents, look, here's the actual data at Central Square.
Right.
If your child participates in boom, 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 this is what we see. Is it not, what could happen for them?
And I think anecdotally, the average Joe knows a lot of this stuff, but this now provides data and facts.
Right.
So anecdotally, the schmoes that don't come to school generally are not going to do well. Right?
And so you know that, but now what this does is it gives you the list, it kind of gives you a target, and then it gives you the ability to verify that, and it's more authentic when you have it. We know that when you have a visual and you're talking to it, and you're having a discussion at, orientation, 8th grade, 9th grade transition, I mean, whatever opportunity you have, and you can show this to your parents, then they're gonna say, you know what, we got to get you off the Xbox and we want you participating in XYZ. So you have that, and then what you can do with this, right? So this is a student count by activity name. You folks already have this. Your administration already provides this to you. So we didn't just replicate that. We're trying to automate it. Because someone spent a lot of time collecting that data and making the chart. And then here you have the, right here, this is my favorite, the GPA indicator count by activity name. So this speaks exactly to where. So now we're going to look at the kids that are participating, and what we found here in this particular example, right here, your football sophomores, but there's 69 of them that have less than a 3.5 GPA. So now we can go and maybe have a discussion with the team and the coach to say, we're looking at this, we want you to participate, but we also want you to focus on the academic piece, and it gives you that data to have. Where normally, how would you come up with a list of students that are on your athletic team and show what their GPA is? You wouldn't have that, so now we're going to be able to cross-reference that.
Yeah, because to me, this is so critical, because you could have a dashboard for guidance, so when you're bringing a student in, you can say, listen, and you can show, or you have parents and a student, and say, well, I want little Johnny to go to college. Okay, well, let's pull up your indicators, Johnny and Betty. This isn't working out. Are not on the right path for this. So this is truly what, your level isn't in, your pathway isn't in.
Yep.
Is this, are we going down the wrong path? Yep. So, and to me, if you can make a presentation and say, listen, compared to, if you look at, it's a salesmanship pitch is really what it is. It's that, I want to buy a Cadillac. Well, you can only afford $250 a month. You're not getting a Cadillac.
Or your attendance is in this percentage.
Yes.
This is the success rate of students with that same percentage. Whoa, there's an eye opener.
Yeah, to me, you would never know, other than your gut, the administration walking around, how your football's grade point average your players are. And it could be great, they could be sectional champions, but they're all C students. Now, that might be normal, but not when everybody else are much better students. So to me, it just give you an indication of something to look at and to consider. I mean, you're not going to change the world with it, but to me, no one is half the battle.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe.
So there's probably about 7 or 8 indicators. We're, like I said, and, to respect time. So I was joking earlier, I was the district clerk for 15 years. And so I know what it's like about, 9:30 and how the conversation goes. So out of respect for that, this has been a link.
It's usually about 8:30 here. Or whatever.
That's about our halfway point.
So, yeah, normally if I was doing this presentation, the superintendent would have the claw and start pulling me off. So, no, I'm happy to come back. I'm happy to, if we wanted to just do a data workshop, where you could look, more at specific, but a few other things that, are near and dear to me is your staffing ratios, which are available in 5 site in terms of your budget. We're going to look at student count, and I've got the data now in 5 site. You can pull it up. But I looked at your state student achievement results in comparison, from a county-wide. You quickly see where you are there. So that was one that that really stood out. So really, like that, you can see what are some areas that maybe we want to focus on as a district. So these are the types of data analytics that I think are going to drive that decision making. Certainly, it's going to drive your strategic planning process. Where the key on these areas, and we see ourselves as a partner. To translate a lot of data in a student information system to be able to boil it down so that you make these quick decisions. So with that, I'll take any questions, and like I said, I'm happy to come back, whenever you need me. I'm just 20 minutes down the road. So.
And what we'll do is, since it's perfect time because our strategic planning committee, there's a ton of people on there, parents, staff members, whatnot. But when we get to the actual benchmarks and we say this is what we want to improve, we'd love to have you come back for that. So I'll let you know the dates of those coming meetings, because that presentation is going to be key for them.
Yeah, we were talking about just this presentation in terms of your administrative team to get them to, and then the ideas will start to pour out, right? We think that'll be really effective. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
All right,
great
super.
presentation, Mike.
All right.
On the overview slide with all the different components that you offer, are we taking advantage of all of those today, or only some of those?
Let me just quickly jump back.
6 of them.
Yeah, like the 6, yep, that slide right.
Yeah, so you have 5 site, and you were one of our very early, jump on board to 5 sites. So this has all the historic data, and everything that I referenced tonight is in 5 site. Now you have 5 lab, right? 5 maps would be if you had a district boundary project that you wanted to look at, or if you wanted to map specifically areas within your district. So that'd be a separate project. 5 Share is a social platform that it would only be applicable if you had like a whole group of people in this area that we're in. But this is probably the only one that you're not taking advantage of. And this is actually what I do in terms of the budget forecasting. So in this one, I would work with Maureen directly to do a 5-year financial plan on an annual basis, and then on a monthly basis, which would generate the ESSA and the transparency reports. Not completely, they would assist, because a lot of that work has to come from the district's chart of accounts. But yeah, everything else that you have. So, and I think, when we spoke about this, I think 5 Lab is really the one that, what you just saw tonight is probably one of the first presentations in all of New York. I think there's been one other presentation with 5 Lab, so I think you're on the cutting edge in terms of, where this is going.
So a quick question to end. Is Forecast 5 the company? That's the company, correct?
Forecast 5 is the company.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And how new is it? When you say, is it brand new?
The company's been around about 5 years now, but it was a financial company that almost like a fiscal advisors. It was a financial company that spun off into the data side, because when you have to fill out all of the financial paperwork, as business officials, we end up spending a lot of time doing that work. And so what the company saw was, well, we could automate that process. So that's how the company was formed, and now, we're in 26 states doing exactly the same thing. We're trying to find ways to automate data to make life easier for administrators that wouldn't otherwise have time to crunch this type of data.
And that's why we have 5 sites, because that was the original.
That was the reason.
And we've been doing that since the beginning.
That's our enrollment numbers when I started off the presentation.
And that's a lot of those graphs and charts that I have in the financial.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we've got partnerships with New York State ASBO and NISCUS, and we're at all the major conferences and, doing presentations that are really relevant to what's going on in school districts, so.
Thank you. Can I ask this, who is the intended audience for this information? Is it administrators, teachers,
Yeah,
parents, students? I mean, who?
This is an administrative tool primarily.
So like a parent couldn't go in and like look at the district numbers and say, oh, you're here with their kid?
No,
Right.
no.
Okay,
We
and-
would send them to the New York State report card. This is really an administrative tool.
Understand. And the other thing I wanted to ask is if an administrator or if a teacher asks an administrator for a certain relationship between 2 different data sets, what kind of effort does it take from you guys to add that to the dashboard?
So now that we're kind of out of presentation mode here, I can just quickly go back. So, I don't want to edit New Jersey's, but let me get back to yours.
And I guess where I'm going with that is this something that administrators can like intuitively do stuff themselves, or?
Yeah, so I always say there's probably three types of users, right? There's the one, which are probably a few percentage that would grab software like this and take it over themselves, but certainly you could do that. But then there's kind of a hybrid where, you're going to do some and you're going to have our staff, our team, because there's a whole team, back at the home office to do this for you. And then there's the client that says, I don't want to do anything, I want to be able to make a phone call and have you do it, and we're happy to do that as well. But each of these these are what we call dashlets, so they're very easy to create, and you can just go to this Explore section right here, and essentially just pull up raw data. So if we wanted to pull up attendance data, you can pull up raw data, and then you see where it says Add to Dashboard. So you can see this is just what you would see as a data chart, a data table. You quickly create it, and then save it, and that little section, you just drop it in. So you don't need to be a computer programmer to do this, put it that way, yeah.
But it's gonna be important having you with our admin staff be able to.
I think
help
so.
And the principal say, here's the Rolls Royce, but this is what it looks like under the hood.
Well, I think so, but primarily because we don't have a best practices. We've got 6 other districts in New York to draw from. But I prefer to be part of it, just based on my administrative experience and then as a liaison with the company. So I think so to start, but then I think after that, I think you'll have plenty of opportunities for administrators and staff to have conversations about data. That's the most effective way to have the change occur if there's a change that's necessary. It might validate what you already know, so.
Thank you. Thanks.
Great
Thank
presentation.
you.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry for the time, folks.
No, that's good.
I'd give you another hour.
We're not afraid to break out the hook, so you were good.
All right, okay. All
Great
right.
job, thank you.
All right.
All right. And with that, our next presentation is going to be from King and King.
Now we're going to have King and King come up. Kurt Narberg. We also have Turner Construction here, project managers.
Do you want to talk about the security project first, or you want to jump into the capital phase 2 project?
It doesn't really matter to me, I just want to make sure they're both touched upon that we give the board the update for the phase 2,
Okay.
and then we hit the other one.
All right.
So let me just give a reminder to the board, whenever we talk about safety and security, we have to keep it high level, so avoid detailed questions in public forum, and if we cross that line, we'll go to it.
Do you have the security presentation?
Yep.
Kurt, do you know any good jokes? No?
Not tonight.
Not tonight that you can tell here.
Maybe.
Can you just go into forecast 5 and create one?
Breaking news then.
What?
Tom Brady retires. No, just kidding.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Go
year's
Bills.
open.
Another 3 years, baby.
Yeah, he is.
Marty on the Red Sox.
There we go. want us to just jump into the phase 2 discussion?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's do that. Okay.
Derek, click back off. No.
Yeah, so really our purpose here on the phase 2 discussion is to talk about the bid results that were given to the board from last Monday and the recommendations that were sent out on Thursday and Friday. You all have the summary of those results. I mean, just from a big global picture standpoint, the design and construction team is really quite pleased with the turnout. As we've been kind of leading up to the bid process, we were very concerned based on other bids that were out on in this region that we're getting at best at times one bidder for a contract, and in some cases 0 bidders. And so the workload is high, and labor shortages are real, and commodity prices are all over the place. And so we're doing a lot of things as a team to put us in a great position for that. And so we were really pleased with the results of, the multiple different bids that we did receive. And so overall, we're in good shape for moving forward on phase 2 work.
So,
We're happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so I think, unless the board has questions, I mean, we had everything through multiple emails. We have the, I think it's amounts to 6 items to vote on tonight. I mean, anything you'd want to highlight? Like I know, in talking to Tom, same thing you just said, which is turnout was good. Was there anything that stuck out to you? I mean, were there any surprises in the bid openings?
There are surprises in every bid opening that we've had. I would say, obviously the one that stands out is the electrical bid, which, or I'm sorry, the mechanical bid, that was, over significantly more than what was budgeted. But the budgetary process, when we start to break out contracts by primes, there's a bit of shuffling that happens throughout the process, even way back before pre-referendum, because we don't break out the work that way. We're planning for a project in totality, so when we voted the project several years ago, and then we broke it into 3 phases, what this team has been doing is protecting the end game, which is where we're at right now, to make sure that we can continue to get all of that work done, given some of the things that were added in during that process, i.e. the window wall at Millard Hawk and other places that we added scope to the project that were necessary to be done while we were doing this work. And so in doing that, we created some alternates for some other various work that could be pulled out if necessary.
the
So
roof and brewers and things that would never have shown up
Correct.
on that original building condition survey until you get up into it.
yeah, so and as we talked about in the first major significant capital phase, that we actually were under budget. So we were able to take those funds and kind of push them down the road into the next phase. And, even with the overages, most of the other budgetary items for the contracts were below budget. And so overall, we're in good shape. And so, from a total standpoint with the project, with all the work that we've done in the last couple of years and will continue in the next couple of years, we're in good shape.
Based on what we received, I have no questions, so.
So all that data, basically what's at risk are the 3 deducts from your memo, which may get put back into the fight given other changes down the road.
Yes,
Summary correct?
correct.
Correct, yes.
So, question I have, assuming there was a very detailed RFP that was sent out to the bidders, because usually I'm accustomed to seeing like a bid come back and they'll usually have comments on all the line items. Is that something you provided?
Well, the bid process here, there's drawings and specs that are issued.
Right.
In this case, the spec book's like this thick.
Right, yep.
And the drawings are about this thick in 3 volumes. And what they do is they go through in their bid tab and they identify some alternate pricing.
Okay.
It's basically it's a lump sum pricing with some deduct alternates or add alternates depending on the prime contract we're looking at with some unit pricing. So there's not a summary sheet that breaks out all their numbers.
All right, I guess what I'm asking is, we looked at more than just the lowest price, looked at, they usually have comments on each one of the line items that you take into account, right?
It's pretty limited because it's a public bid. Excuse me, and the bidders aren't allowed to qualify the bid. They can only fill in what we've asked them to fill in.
Okay.
In this case, it's a base bid and then identifying the value of the different alternates we've identified.
Okay,
So
so
they-
the four alternates that you have right here.
Correct. Well, there was more alternates than that. We have 4 that we've identified as alternates that we're recommending for award, that we have there. Where there were more alternates than that, I forget, was there total
Yeah,
7?
depending on the contractor, right? The general contractor had like 7 alternates. The theatrical contractor had 0 alternates. The plumbing contractor had 1 alternate deduct. Electrical had 2. Mechanical had 1. So it just varied on the scope, but the consistent alternate was like 8-3, which is numbered there on the sheet for you. That was carried across multiple trades.
What we did on what we did on your memo here was to consolidate. So, as Pat said, A3 is comprised of multiple prime contracts that I just consolidated those for a consolidated description. The letters that you have, the individual recommendation letters, break out each and every one of those individually. This was just to kind of make it a little bit easier to understand that singular, the singular alternate of the singular. Does that answer your question on terms?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, it's not a typical process where we have line item descriptions like an RFP, but there are sometimes exceptions or qualifications that are submitted with the bids. We didn't have any of those. And then part of the next process after we get the bids is to just basically talk with contractors and make sure that they have the scope identified and that they're comfortable signing a contract, which is about the extent of our conversations at that point.
Any other questions?
So, let me just get a feel for it here. So it doesn't look like there was a really big gap on the total amount, so you're pretty happy with where the bids all came in compared to your estimates? So you think everybody really understood what they're bidding on? And
It appeared to
it
be
was
because,
close, right?
it appeared to be because if the summary sheet we gave you with the bid results, if you look at the grouping, everybody was close.
Pretty
When I
close.
say
That's
close,
what I saw.
you know, it's relative to the dollar value. I mean, $500,000 is still $500,000, but when you're talking $8 million, $500,000 in number ups and downs is close, right? If we had $1.5 million gap with a couple people, then we'd start to wonder what got missed.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was kind of my feeling, so I just wanted
And I would also say that we have a good group of contractors that we're recommending for approval. They're all contractors we're familiar with, that we've done work with before, that we know. So we're very happy about that as well.
And one of them is currently under contract right now.
Right.
Okay, good.
Well, I'll just say with the, and I think I've said it before and I'll say it again, you folks display an air of confidence that as a board member is very comforting, and the work that's been done to date has been, from what I gather, outstanding. So I'd just like that to be known as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, yeah, so the next step is really just for you to accept the contracts as noted later on in your agenda. Any other questions with the phase 2 work? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the security project, I feel like I've done this presentation a few times, so I apologize. I will make it quick. But do I control this? Okay. So as I've stated before, the overall project objectives for the security project were based on a series of not only public discussions, but also infrastructure work that was identified through physical assessments, of the properties. Our main goal with those items that were identified was secure entry and exiting from the buildings as a primary focus. And then we also wanted to take advantage of our continuing partnership with security experts that were engaged
who also did full security assessments of each of the buildings that fed into the infrastructure items. And then overall to deliver a project that had minimal tax impact for the community. So the schedule right now as it stands is we are hoping to vote the security project along with the budget on May 21st. The design work will start upon a successful vote in May. SED review would be an expedited process, which would be in that November, December, January timeframe, with bidding in March and April, and then 2 summers of work, which kind of coincides with some of the work that's going to be going on in the Phase 2 capital project. So the theme at each of the buildings is pretty consistent, and so there's a sketch associated with each of the buildings that shows the secure entry sequence. The entry sequence is meant to create a vestibule that, depending on the building and ultimately the details of what are worked out with each building approach, there will be multiple levels of locked entry. There will be basically transaction windows where books can be dropped off and other things, sign-ins can happen, and the interior staff will have total control of access for anybody coming in from the outside. So we'll have cameras and we'll have access control, and there'll be multiple locked entry points that will limit that access. So this is Brewerton Elementary, which has honestly probably the biggest intervention in terms of creating that vestibule because of the location of the main office and where the cafeteria is. We had the board meeting there last time. We went in the door right by the cafeteria, and the office is, further down that corridor. So we have to build out that to get it closer to the outside. So that's probably the biggest element. And then at each of the buildings, we're doing interior door and hardware replacements so that we can have secure lockdown systems for each of the doors to the classrooms. We're also replacing exterior doors. And then security film, both interior and exterior windows around the building. And then particular spots of sensitivity for security bollards at different places around the building. Hastings Mallory, there's already a pretty significant vestibule that's there, so this is more about the office alteration to get security and visibility forward to the building at the access point, and then redirect traffic into the office area and around so that we can kind of separate the entry and exit points. Again, interior and door hardware and replacements, exterior door replacements, the security film with exterior windows. And then in this particular project, as we've been talking about from the beginning, we have 3 buildings that we're actually doing window replacements just due to the age of the windows and the necessity to do that while we're doing this work. AA Cole, we've got an existing canopy outside, and we're going to be kind of building underneath that canopy to create the secure vestibule, as well as kind of just expanding the exit way so we separate those there. Again, interior door and hardware, exterior doors, the security film and the security bollards, and then window replacements there as well. Millard Hawk. So Millard Hawk's got a bunch of work that's happening in the current capital project, and so as part of this will be the same thing with the vestibules, the interior and door and hardware replacements, exterior door, security film, security bollards, and then we're doing half of the windows in the current capital project, and the other half that we didn't do and had not anticipated doing is in this project. CSI, we tried to minimize the scope with this work so that because we're at least using the building currently as surge space, and so we're just concentrating more on the secure vestibule and some of the base elements that we're doing in some of the other buildings. So this is one of the smaller areas of intervention with the work that we're doing with CSI. The middle school's in pretty decent shape just because of the age of the building itself. So there's a little bit less in terms of interior and exterior door replacement that's necessary as part of this. We are doing the security film, and the kind of the entry vestibule sequence just requires a little bit of reshuffling of that kind of underneath canopy that exists before you enter into the middle school that we're going to be kind of creating that element.
Incorrect, I think just because the formatting on there, when it says estimated project cost, you see it's right below it, but on ours and on the website, it actually shows the dollar.
Yeah, I was hoping it showed.
It does,
somewhere, yeah.
it's on all of ours, it's on the
Okay, good.
website.
Yeah.
You have a summary slide at the end that I think will show.
Yeah,
that.
we do. And then the high school, one of the interesting things about the high school is, and we've had several discussions about this, is there's a lot of access points around this building at various times. And so we definitely want to consolidate with, in a very secure way, the kind of main entrance, which was initially our focus. We're also going to be doing some work on the back of the building where the gymnasium is, so that, because that's another pretty significant access point. And we've got a series of other areas, like right outside here, that we're just going to put some bollards around and just kind of protect those openings a little better and secure those areas as well. And then the rest of the work kind of falls in line. So here's that proposed project summary for each of the buildings. It gives us a grand total project cost of just under $12 million. And then that $12 million translates into about 21 cents per thousand, or $21 on 100,000 assessed property as a tax impact number.
How's that show up on the voters ballot? I mean, is that just part of the budget?
It'll be proposition separate.
It is separate?
I'm not sure.
And is
Separate.
there, has there been history of these kind of projects having issues?
Right now, all the safety and security projects seem to be going through in the past 3 years that I have seen. You mean like further beyond that?
Yeah, I guess in the past history, right? I mean,
I haven't seen any go down. I mean, we're in a very interesting spot where if people wanted to compare us, so for instance, like Washington DC was $2.35 million security project. The reason why that was so much lower is because they've had a capital project within the past 13, 14 years that they've already have the vestibules. They already have so much of the stuff in place that we don't have. But there are districts that far exceed that and have passed it no problem at all.
And historically, we don't have a ton of experience with capital.
No.
I mean, over the last
It's been
15 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
Since the last
So.
one. We just did one in 17, which obviously
Right.
the project we're on right now.
what was the one before that? Was it the
It was-
high school one? Is that the last one?
No, it was called an Excel project, but it was renovations that it was when Excel money first came out,
Okay.
renovations across the district.
Okay.
Thank you, Kurt.
You're welcome. So the next step for the board is to adopt the resolution, which sets the 45-day clock in motion. And also, you'll have to do a secret resolution that just creates a type 2 action, because we're not doing any significant reconstruction of any of the buildings. There's just these small vestibule pieces that are working on. And then at some point, we have to decide on kind of a public forum to talk about the project before the actual vote. And then we'll get to May 21st.
And then just to clarify, last meeting, we said this would go through expedited. We know we're going to have to go expedited on this, correct? I saw that on one of the slides.
Yeah,
Right.
just because, I mean, we're looking
Yep.
at an 8 to 9 month review
Yep.
period right now. We would have to push it into 2021, which I don't think anybody's interested in doing, so.
Because as stands right now, I mean, everybody knows our entranceways are abysmal when you're looking at it. Let's say this all goes through, it gets passed, these guys approve it, let's say the district approves it, the voters approve it. When would actual work begin, just so people understand for this safety project?
Yeah, so we're looking at the summer of 2020. To start work, and I just want to be careful because, some of the work that we're doing with the vestibules includes storefront systems and other things, which right now in the marketplace that we're in are 16 to 20 week lead times. So the actual ability to get that work done in the summer is probably not going to happen. But if we can get the base work done, where we can pour foundations, get some of the, kind of base work finished, we'll at least be ready for it, and then maybe we can do some of that work over holidays and other things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great. Thanks, Rick. All right, and now we're down to our last presentation or two with budget workshop and debt analysis.
Maureen, you want to do that analysis first?
I can.
Go ahead.
I'll be real quick. I'd just like to make sure we cover each piece of those pies that are on our budget document, and the debt piece is a big one. This is our scheduled debt. This actually, Phil, these are the projects that still remain. That Excel project and the energy performance contract are the only ones that we still are paying on, and those were the last two that we did. And the Excel project was a capital project that had voter approval, but energy performance contracts don't even need voter approval. So we have, since that project, we hadn't voted a project until the one that we're in right now. At the end of this year, our capital project 2017 will be coming online, so that's going to bring on about a $39 million piece of debt. It's a $40.8 million project. There is some Excel money still left out there, so we're getting about $800,000 in Excel money. And as we've been doing the bond anticipation notes for the last 2 summers, we've paid off $500,000 here and $500,000 there. That's why the debt in the end will be 39.2 versus the 40.8, which is what the project spend is. That's our principal and interest payments that we'll have in next year's budget, and we'll be ending the year with total debt of $46.4 million. I always try to build it out by the building because it's a discussion that we always have. So that $48.8 million of debt, it will be broken down, is broken down currently by the building. We don't have any breakdown yet of the 2017. That doesn't happen until you submit your finals to SCD, and then they accept the aidable portions, and they tell you what the building aid will be on the debt, and then you can divide it between the buildings. The district office is still on there. We did sell it, but we still have the debt. And then these are the payments on the big pieces of debt and the corresponding aid that'll be coming in next year. So the aid numbers are what you see on the revenue in our state aid number, that's the building aid, and then the payments are on the debt side. And that's my topic. Any questions?
Still clear?
Nope.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tori.
In the spirit of competition, Tom, can you beat that time presentation?
You gonna show the enrollment numbers?
That's good. Not this one. All right. Okay, we talked about this before, the possible adjustment changes. We had the retirement incentive savings that grew. Again, today we had somebody who's been in the district for a very long time, had just officially put in her retirement letter, very nice letter. Great person, so that increased it even more. We're going to break that down, the money, the projected savings through breakage, declining enrollment, positions through attrition in elementary possibly, mental health initiatives, positions, reading initiatives, positions. And again, with the reading initiative positions, I'm going to break down when we get into that a little bit, but just so you know, well, you'll see it on the next slide. So the retirement incentive, we're looking at that as basically 4 full-time positions with the reading incentive, sorry, the retirement incentive. Reading positions, the reductions, the 1.5, so we had, there's one reading teacher that is moving on to an administrative position in a different district, and that is a position that we saw through attrition would be able to go, just looking at sections. It's not, when you first look at this, I don't want anyone to think, oh my God, they're cutting reading. When reading's an initiative, we're actually seeing how many sections are being delivered. It wasn't a cut because we were trying to save money. It was a cut just, again, through attrition with the declining population. And then there was a half-time position that is currently being filled with a sub. So none of those are positions that someone's actually going to lose their job that was a full-time employee.
So Tom, the full 1.5 reading position is due to sections?
Yeah.
alone?
Due to sections. That is correct. The health, we talked about this before, that again plays in with, that's based on needs. Social, emotional, mental health counselor, this is huge right here. This is what I think we're most proud of as a whole administrative group. We've talked about the inverted pyramid of resources, and we talked about what that means for a couple of years now. At our middle school, we have several psychologists, school psychologists, counselors. At the high school level, we have several, counselors and psychologists and interns. The lacking area was elementary. So we knew that was an area that we had to address. So we did last year. So for this year, we have Joe Moskal has done a phenomenal job. We did an MOA, so basically she's a teaching assistant in basically name, but in everything else, it's basically been doing social work. Though the 2 school districts that she's been connected to, we frequently get phone calls from the parents of the kids that she works with and the community agencies that she's linked families to. It's been phenomenal. Where we're really excited is the fact that for this balanced budget, we'll be now introducing an elementary counselor to 2 elementary buildings. And then we are solidifying the position. I know we've been kind of calling it homeschool liaison. It's basically Joanna Moskal's position. It will be set. It will be a legitimate social work assistant. That was her dream job. She told me 4 years ago when I talked to her when she was a teaching assistant in Brewerton, and she loves it. So we see her still overseeing 2 of the elementary buildings, doing a lot of obviously exactly what she's doing right now. And then next year we have 2 of our elementary buildings will have a school counselor. Next year, for the 2021, we are going to have another elementary school counselor and another elementary social worker assistant. So now that will give us, in 2 years, it'll give us 2 elementary school counselors, which is phenomenal, and it will give us 2 elementary school social worker assistants. That is exactly what we needed at the elementary. We recognize that we have a lot of students that enter the middle school, and there are certain needs that we just were not able to provide them under the current structure. So we will be doing that. It's far more than school psychologists can take on when they are doing significant, obviously all of the testing connected to IEPs. So that is going to be a huge win for the district in bringing an elementary counselor and solidifying the position of social worker assistant, and then just building on that for the following year. Special education, we also know we're going to need a 1.5 full-time. So we currently have Sandy McGuan has done a great job, kind of as a part-time stipend CPSE chair. But we want a legit full-time CPS chair. We know how important that is. And so that will be one of those positions. The other position will be a clerical that will go to every single CSE meeting and make all of the changes live. That's something that we've done a lot of research. That's something that Michelle Alani talked about for a long time. And board members have actually commented saying, my spouse works in another district, it's not written in the IEP that takes several weeks or sometimes months to be able to then follow through, put it in the system. It's going to be done right there at the meeting, which is huge. That's going to play a huge role, especially for anyone that's got a child with special needs. You want that updated immediately on the spot. We'll be able to do that.
Hey, Tom, you didn't discuss the business positions.
So the business positions, we knew, and we actually tried to get a full-time business teacher. So we had a business teacher that was on a callback in the city of Syracuse and went back, city of Syracuse, they had a position that then went back. That kind of hurt us because we wanted to actually go with a full-time one because of the work-based. If you want to jump in, Connie, any part of it, it was for the work-based hours and the stuff that we're trying to do, it was far too much for our business department to be able to handle. And then the other part was, at the middle school, we wanted to be able to have, it was a business teacher teaching the computer-based learning course, instead of having it come out of the FACS program. So we had tried, when we put it out there, we could not get anybody.
It's also a combination of the number of students in 7th and 8th grade and the bubble passing through. Right now, the person that teaches computer basic skills, because it's taught at 6th grade, is a FACS teacher. It's always been that way in this district. Unfortunately now we had reduced a FACS teacher a couple of years ago, but we have this bubble passing through. So the person that's doing both FACS, one of the two people, we have two FACS teachers. One, though, does computer basic skills. She has to go and teach full-time FACS now. So she can't teach computer basic skills. So half the position is strictly at Central Square Middle School teaching the computer basic skills. The other position, the other half, would be up at the high school addressing our internship program and our work-based learning hours program that we've implemented and assisting with that.
Tom, I just have a follow-up on the business course. I know from parents asking, there was an issue this school year with City BOCES AM, PM students wanting to take the highly recommended, like the financial courses, the smart money, and things like that. Will this solve that problem that it's only offered at a specific time because we don't have flexibility with the one teacher's schedule? You know,
It
Tom,
may or
you know
may
what
not, because all of those teachers can teach that.
Okay.
It's just enrollment. So if the majority of the kids, when they plug in the master schedule, are all afternoon kids, and then you have one morning student, it's all based on what do they call it, the matrix?
Yeah, but it's going to obviously help us a lot more with an additional person to be able to look at their course load to figure out who's going to be teaching what.
Okay.
Absolutely. But like I said, it's a matrix. If it happens that all the kids that sign up for it are available to take it in the afternoon, but one, I don't know, it might have to be, what do they call that?
Distance learning.
Not distance learning, but a lot of times they'll do it in audit, not an audit. Where they work with that one person during their study hall.
Oh,
Okay.
the independent.
Independent study.
Independent study, okay.
Yeah,
yes.
I just wondered, because I know, we've heard a lot from the business department about how important those courses were and should be mandated for every student. And,
Well-
with that kind of build-up, and then to have it only available to certain students when we're talking about the city group, I just didn't know. I know that was an ongoing problem, and so I just didn't know if that would help to remedy.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point. We want to be very careful with courses that we're mandating every student to take. I mean, currently we're doing it because it falls opposite, some of our courses, it falls opposite of a science lab. So rather than having them sit in a study hall, they're taking some of like the mandated courses. But that's how we told parents with that, because originally parents were like, I don't want it competing against anything else. No, I'm not talking about, I'm just saying in general, I'm not talking about, I know the course she's talking about, but you mentioned mandated courses and.
Right, like the QO 101.
Yep,
and
that's
those
exactly
courses.
what I'm talking about.
But and I understand that one's, made available to most, if not all students, but I thought from presentations last year from the business department, their goal in the coming years was to start making these other life skills type courses not mandated, but highly encouraged that
Sure.
all students take them. And so I just wanted to make sure that if we're going to send that message out to parents, like your student should be taking this, and then the student tries to sign up for
Correct.
it, that's essentially what I'm saying.
No, I hear you. So as we look at budget adjustments, you see currently there's elementary, you see a zero for counselor, social worker assistant. Kind of there because that's Joanne Moskal, but it's on the it's an MOA. She's technically still under the realm of teaching assistant. In 1920 you see counselor, elementary counselor would be at AA Cole and also servicing Millard Hawk Elementary. Social worker assistant, Joanne, would be servicing Brewerton, Millard Hawk. And then 2021, we had another elementary counselor servicing the other two schools and another social worker assistant. In looking at many different models, we felt that was definitely the way to go, rather than go with a counselor in every single elementary, plus the school psychologist that we already have, because then a big component that's missing is the social work piece. Short term, balancing the budget, again, it's, the state has not put out their budget yet, so there's going to be a little bit of a timing issue here. But if the state comes back and we're going to take that extra money, if there is extra money, we're going to put it towards building aid. It's really important that our budget doesn't get bigger. Long term, we have sale of a building. We have, that's obviously Cleveland Elementary. Next board meeting, executive session, we're going to give you the big update and kind of a proposal that the people that are interested in buying that building have had. We're going to give you more information about that. The special education program, alternative programming. Again, though, I want to mention something about CSI that I think now we can publicly say it because the unions have agreed. So for what is CSI right now, we talked about how there's going to be 2 grade levels down there. That's 6 classrooms. We really thought about saving money and not negatively impacting the program. So to do that, it's actually going to be me as the superintendent. My office will be down there at CSI for the year. Pearl will be with me. I'll have no problem traveling back and forth to the high school for continued capital project meetings, cabinet meetings, and whatnot. But the reason why we felt that was the best way to do it was because having Pearl down there would be definitely an additional stipend to what Pearl is doing, because she would also be doing the work for 2 grade levels of all the stuff that a secretary does, especially in an elementary building. But it's far cheaper than bringing in somebody. Salary and benefits would be about $60,000 to $65,000 to hire a clerical, and then you wouldn't need them the following year. The union for the building clerical have agreed that they would not grieve that, and they're totally okay with an MOA. They believe it makes sense, and it's a fiduciary responsibility for the district, and it's good for the community. By me being down there means that we don't have to have another administrator, which would be $300 a day for 200 days, which is $60,000. So we're talking about the ballpark of $130,000, $135,000, $140,000 of savings in doing this. I have no problem about going down there. Day-to-day things, the building principal is still Amanda Deal. Amanda will be doing the observations, but on those things that they have to send it to, principal, they have to send a student to the office. I was an elementary principal for 4 years. I don't think that we're going to skip a beat with this. It's not going to impact my responsibility as a superintendent at all, and I think it's going to be good cost savings to the district. And honestly, I was in a high school now for 2 years. I think it's going to be pretty cool to be down in elementary for a year. So again, that's additional savings. As you can see, March 27, March 31st on the top, that's when the districts publish our first of 4 legal notices of the budget vote in the Board of Education. I think it's just imperative that we stay on a pretty good timeline here, which is, it's important we pass the votes and what we're going to need to obviously have from our board members to pass today. So a lot of thought went into the budget workshop. I'm very, very excited. Many meetings, long meetings in cabinet regarding the need for counseling. So I think that's a huge win, as well as increasing our social work at the elementary level.
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Pearl, if you can, just double check on that last slide, the date. Our website says something different for when petitions are due. That says the 16th, and I think it's the 22nd on the... Okay. Oh, it's because that's the 2018 budget vote. I'm like, yeah, that'd be the problem.
I'd like to go back a year.
Go back one presentation if you want to see it.
No, that's fine, just, if we just replace it before we post it.
Yes.
All right, thanks for all the presentations. We'll move into reports now. Unfinished business we already covered, which is data discussion. That'll stay on there just as they go through the iterations down the road. Board member reports. Anyone have anything? We'll start with our student rep. Nothing down there? All right.
Sorry, did you want to say who he was?
I have my new student representative who's going to be covering me or taking over for me next year. He was here, he was in the back. His name's Logan Foster. And he did pretty good. We interviewed him and everything. We voted on him. And yeah. Right during his speech too. That's when he went up.
He'll be fine.
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke about Tom's speech, but I will refrain.
That was pretty short, I thought, but okay. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, great choice, by the way. Very well done. Open up to the rest of the board, anything they want to bring up? All right, I have one.
I'll be in Dallas for the 8th, just so everybody's aware.
All right, so that is when we'll actually adopt our budget, right? So, all right, thanks, Kim. I have one thing, I'm going to read something, and all I need to know, I need the board, because it's going to be in all our names, so you need to speak now or forever hold your peace. It's not a voting thing, but it's a basically legislative or lobbying letter. So it'll be addressed to all of our representatives. On behalf of the Central Square School District Board of Education, I'm writing at this time to request your continued support for public school districts over the final weeks of the state budget process. We thank you for your support and are pleased to see that the legislature reject the most harmful provisions of the executive budget. As you know, the governor proposed only $338 million increase in foundation aid, just 1.9% over the previous school year, with hundreds of districts proposed to receive less than 0.5% increase. That amount is far below what our school districts need in the coming school year. School districts are experiencing rapid growth in student need, from English language learners to growing student poverty, to high-cost special education students, and many districts were also experiencing overall enrollment growth. We thank you for including a significant foundation aid increase in your budget proposal and join you in seeking the more than $1 billion in foundation aid over 18-19 in the final enacted budget. We also write to offer our support for a number of items that were included in one or both legislative budget proposals, including the following: rejection of the proposed school-based funding redistribution plan, rejection of the proposed consolidation of reimbursement aids into a block grant or services aid, rejection of the proposed reduction in building aid reimbursement rates, updating the BOCES district superintendent salary cap, increasing the cap on aidable BOCES CTE salaries and special services aid for non-component districts, establishing a renewed period of building aid and transportation aid forgiveness, authorizing the creation of a TRS reserve fund, making pre-kindergarten transportation aidable as proposed by the Assembly, making space for health, mental health, and dental health buildings aid eligible as proposed by the Assembly, which is incredible that it's not currently, making school bus stop arm cameras transportation aidable as proposed by the Senate. Finally, we ask that you remember the NISBA remains opposed to the property tax cap and urges you to know that there is no immediate need to act upon the issue as the current cap does not expire until 2020. Before any serious consideration is given to making the tax permanent or even extending it, the state should first consider adopting common sense adjustments to the cap. These include, but are not limited to, eliminating negative caps, including BOCES capital and the district capital exclusion, and ensuring that pilots do not adversely affect school districts. Thank you for your commitment and dedication to support public school districts and our students. We look forward to working with you during the rest of the state budget process. So any objection before that goes out on behalf of our school district?
Saying they want to eliminate the cap?
No, they're simply saying don't make the cap permanent before you make some modifications to it.
Okay.
It doesn't run out until
2020. So there's a push to get through this year without any changes when there's a significant effort to make some slight modifications to it before it's permanent. All right, no objections? That'll go up. Thank you. And now the superintendent's report.
Congratulations to Mark Ryo, who was gold medal winner in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards for photography. Nearly 340,000 works of art and writing were submitted to the 2019 Scholastic Awards. Mark's work was selected by some of the foremost leaders in the visual and literary arts for excellence in originality, technical skill, and the emergence of a personal voice or vision. Receiving a national medal places your student within the top 1% of all submissions. Do they have this or no? Do we give this some? This is actually the piece. I tweeted it out last week. I don't know if any of the board had seen this. This was what the market captured of Nick Ransom. And so the art teacher had come down, photography teacher just was blown away and was so proud of her student. And then they were going to be going to Carnegie Hall for this competition. So it's a huge honor. Congratulations to Mark Ryle. Congratulations to the following for their performance on Saturday at Fulton in the OCMEA Honors Orchestra Festival concert. Jared King, Hannah Sywalski, Lily Fitzgerald, Brianna Freeborn, Jillian Julian, and Cole Wilson. Congratulations to the members of the Cadet Winter Guard program for their performance in competition at Liverpool this past weekend. Also to the junior varsity and varsity guards for their first place finish. The varsity guard had the highest score of the show, posting a 91.04. I want to give a huge shout out to all of the community members and staff members that came to the staff-student basketball game that was for raising money for backpack. Backpack program was over $2,300 that was raised. Alicia Crandall really spearheaded that. It was her baby. And in my 4 years here, it's probably been the most significant community event that I've been a part of, and it was awesome. From the elementary straight up to the 12th grade students, and there were so many staff members there. It was fun, and all 3 special patrol officers. MVP of the whole night went to Jeff Malaki. He would tell you that he's never played basketball before, but he was a heck of a linebacker. So that was awesome. Timothy Ryan, 2017 graduate. What I would like, a little bit of moment of silence. Timothy Ryan, 2017 graduate of Paul V. Moore, passed away on March 11, 2019. From what I am hearing, anybody that knew Timothy just had nothing but amazing things to say about him. So if we can just pause a moment in memory of Tim. Thank you. That is my superintendent report.
Thank you, Tom. And with that, we'll move into our action items. Make a motion to accept item F1, which is to establish July 1st this year as the date for the annual organizational meeting.
I'll
Can I get a
second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Can I get a motion for item F2, approval of the 2017 capital construction project phase 2 general construction contract?
Make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loyer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Can I get a motion for item F3, approval of 2017 capital construction project phase 2 mechanical contract?
Make the motion.
Second.
Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Loyer. Any discussion? All those in favor? I'll make a motion for item F4, approval of 2017 capital construction project phase 2 electrical contract. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. McCarthy?
I'll second. You made the motion, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was your voice for some reason. Any discussion? All those in favor? Can I get a motion for item F5, approval of the 2017 capital construction project phase 2 plumbing contract?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loy. Any discussion? All those in favor? And I'll make a motion for item F6, approval of 2017 capital construction project phase 2 theatrical contract. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McCarthy, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Can I get approval for a motion for item F7, approval of the overnight student trip?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
McCarthy and Loye, sounds like a stage duo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Can I get a motion for item F8, approval of the resolution for the bus proposition, the security project, and the seeker? And before the motion's made, let me just point out, if there's anyone that believes they will not support any portion of this, then we should do a roll call vote individually. Otherwise, we can just do one roll call vote and cover everything. So anyone have any issue to doing it as one roll call vote?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
McCarthy, Loye, any discussion before we do the vote? All right. Just give me 1 second here. All right. Andrew Martin votes yes. Ms. Wood is absent. Mr. Bedworth is absent. Mr. Buddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Loye?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mrs. Nickerson?
Yep.
Mr. Patch?
Yes.
And the motion passes. Is that everything you need, Bob? Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion for item F9, which is the approval of the pyramid brokerage renewal for a period of 30 days from the current expiration, which I believe is tomorrow?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. McCarthy, second by
I'll second.
Mr.
Come
Loye.
on, buddy, don't be stubborn.
Any
No, it's just
discussion?
the pyramid thing, it's just, we gotta knock this out.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Thank you. And I'll make a motion for item F10, approval of the resolution to discontinue the voter registration night. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. I'll start discussion on this just to point out that Pearl had mentioned this before. We're ending the voter registration night because legally we're not even required to have it because we have open registration every day, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. as it is. So, and no one has shown up to it.
Years.
I don't know.
Years.
A few years at least. So, in an effort to not expend needless energy, that is the act. So, any further discussion on that? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept item G in its entirety?
I'll second.
No, that's a motion by Mr. McCarthy.
Motion, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Second by
I'll second.
Mr. Patch. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And I will make a motion to accept item H in its entirety, personnel. Second by?
Second.
Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous, and we have no executive session tonight.
I want to thank Tom.
For the record, I want to thank Trish Jordan for that dedication to sit through the entire meeting just to make sure that her student field trip went through. Thank you.
I'm not gonna deny him the chance.
Great.
Thank you guys for.
Thank you.
Great job.
All right, with that, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a second? Mr. Loye, any discussion? All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.